business. Martin Shkreli was called the most hated man in America after he raised the price of a drug that was used by AIDS and cancer patients. This happened back in September. It went from $13.50 a pill to $750 per pill. Well, now Shkreli has been arrested by the FBI. He's charged with securities fraud related to his days as a hedge fund manager and the head of another drug company. Now, according to federal prosecutors, Shkreli allegedly took $7.6 million in cash and stocks from his previous drug company to pay off old debts owed to some of his hedge fund investors. CNN Money correspondent Christina Alessi is with me now with more details on Shkreli's arrest. Thank you so much for joining us today. What else do we now know about Shkreli's arrest and accusations of misconduct by his former company, Retrophin?
Well, it's actually more complicated than just that one company. It seems like that company basically outed him and started piqued the interest of investigators. But this fraud actually stems back to two other investment vehicles, two other hedge funds that Shkreli started dating back to 2009. And what happens here is a shell game, essentially. When those ventures failed, he used money from the new venture to pay off or try and pay off and cover up losses in the older ventures. And probably the biggest wrongdoing here is when he got to the point when he collected money from public company investors. So not only was he defrauding private company investors, but then he went on and tried to cover up losses with public company money that he had raised in the public markets.
Christina, at the news conference held in New York less than an hour ago, the U.S. attorney outlined the charges compared what Shkreli did to a Ponzi scheme. Could this turn out to be on the Bernie Madoff level of fraud?
Well, maybe in spirit, but certainly not in size. Bernie Madoff, of course, defrauded investors of about $20 billion over a very long period of time. You know, who knows Shkreli's pretty young, so, you know, who knows what would have happened if he had gone, on to continue his work on Wall Street. But, in comparison to Madoff, you're looking at $20 billion versus, potentially $10 or $11 million. In scale, it's certainly not comparable, but, the basic idea is there. You're lying to investors and not only defrauding them of money, but telling them things about your companies and about your funds that simply aren't true.
Christina, would you say there's a chance that this investigation got fast-tracked because of the accusations of price gouging related to Shkreli's current company, Turing?
It's a really interesting question because this is getting a lot of attention because of Shkreli's current firm, his current company, and the fact that he raised prices on those cancer drugs and on those AIDS drugs, and that's what's gotten him so much attention, so much negative attention. But it does seem at this point that federal prosecutors essentially just got lucky on this one, because what had happened was his old company had already flagged this problem, and prosecutors were working on it. In the press conference, they said for about a year. So it does seem like coincidence, and it's good for the prosecutors because they've got all ears and eyes on them now.